Aloha mai kako. Let's try that one more time. Aloha mai kako. There we go. Okay, so just I got an FYI this morning. I was like 6 o'clock or something, and mahalo to Noah for trying to hustle it out. But I got an FYI that they couldn't pull off a projector just yet. So we're improvising this morning. So if you'd like to work with me a little bit, I set up this QR code. You can get up, walk over here, just take a picture of it. It'll take you to a Zoom. And then I'm just going to be sharing the slideshow from there so that you can look at your phone. Because who likes to read books without pictures? I don't know about you guys, but anyway. So please, if you want to take a moment to walk up and just join the Zoom really fast, and then. Okay, everybody thumbs up that sharing. Wow, look at that. We can improvise. This is amazing. Wow, round of applause for yourself. Okay, so now that everything's going, we'll get started. I was looking at the registration for this, and I saw it at about 68 people. I was like, man, 68 people, yeah, just roll up, just talk story, do something. And then when I checked it yesterday and I saw it was at 200 people, I was like, oh my God. I think I might have to figure out something for this presentation, but no, honestly, for me, just being a kid from Hilo, I appreciate everybody coming out and supporting, as well as supporting the Creative Mornings talk stories, as well as being able to come to share some time today. So mahalo nui, appreciate that. Okay, so I didn't say it earlier, but I was introduced. My name is Kuhao Zane, and all of my elementary teachers, whenever they saw that at the bottom of the attendance list, they just saw all of these vowels next to each other. They're like, Kuhao. So that said, I don't expect everybody to memorize the name, but my name is Kuhao, and I appreciate everybody being a part of this morning. And today we'll just be talking story about Sig Zane Designs, as well as some of the projects that I've had over the years. And at the same time, we'll be talking about the theme, which is Native. And I wanted to mahalo the Honolulu chapter because they submitted this theme, Native. And there's 200. Noah, how many chapters are there? 238 chapters that all have to follow the same theme of Native. And what I realized after I went onto their website and everything is that every chapter, if they didn't already have an indigenous designer or a native designer or a native creative or a native artist, they all had to scramble and find some sort of native design. So a round of applause for the Honolulu chapter. Mahalo to the Honolulu chapter for that. And I think also too, when they called me for this talk story and they told me the theme was Native, I was trying to think to myself, I was like, wait, I need to actually think what Native means to me. I'm still not totally sure what Native means to me. And so you guys are kind of a part of this morning experiment for me to talk through in my head what Native is defined, as well as, through my artwork or through the narratives or through different projects. And so hopefully by the end of this, we'll have a general consensus of what this term Native means. So that said, I was born in 1982, earlier when, what was his name? He said that I was working with my dad for decades. I was like, you don't have to say decades, jeez. But yes, I did make 21 years working with my dad this past January. And I don't know if you guys work with your parents, but I would say it's quite a feat for me. But at the same time, it's also a cheers to my dad, because he left a platform open for me to be able to interpret it in my own way. And he was open for me to take my own ideas and see how I could merge it into this platform of Sig Zane Designs that he built back in 1985. So on the little screen, I know it's really small text, but it says 1982, and Sig Zane Designs was started in 1985, which means that in 3 years' time, my dad was like, I can't say that. He's like, I need to figure out how to have a day-to-day job so I can pay for my son. And so That's how Six Zane Designs generally started. But we'll reverse back a little bit. And so on your screens, you'll see my grandma, and this is Edith Kekuhi Kuhi Pu'oene o Na'ali'i o Kohala. She is a cultural icon. She also has been dancing hula aiha'a as well as hula kapu, a specific type of hula it was in our family for about 8 generations now, but she was the one that kind of brought our hula kapu into the spotlight. That term, kuhi kuhi pu'uone, or that portion of her name, kuhi kuhi pu'uone, it actually has to relate specifically to heiaus. I know heiaus sound like a bunch of oogly googly, but just bear with me. Heiaus are the old school iPads. Okay, I know that's a little bit of a jump, I understand. But because they didn't have iPads to be able to read the weather, they had to be super maka'ala and kilo all of the observational data that was around them so that they could figure out what kind of weather would be coming in the coming years. And so they created these areas called heiaus, and they would have different uprights or different alignments of it to align with different celestial bodies or align with different environmental phenomena so that they would be able to read how much rain is going to be in the next year. And so to me, when you look at these heiaus, yes, there are some of them that are scary, and I wouldn't suggest to just walk onto heiaus. That's not what I'm saying. But a lot of the heiaus were actually these areas where it would capture data so that the ali'i would know what kind of decisions to make. That person that created these heiaus was the kuhi kuhi pu'uone. And so kuhi kuhi means the point, pu'u, mountain, or mauna, hill. Kuhi kuhi pu'uone, and one is actually sand or massive earth. And so the person that directs this massive earth and how it should be aligned with the other celestial bodies. And so that's a kuhi kuhi pu'uone. It's the architect of these heiaus. The other day I was talking to my mom, and I was like, okay, Mom, I've been telling this definition of kuhi kuhi pu'uone of like the architect of these heiaus. And she looked at me and she was like, you're wrong. And I was like, Mom, I've been telling that a lot. And she's like, no, you're right, but really what it is kuhi kuhi, to point, pu'us in the sand, and that's when it all clicked for me, like, oh, as an architect, they would draw in the sand to be able to blueprint the heiau before it actually got built. And so that's where that term, kuhi kuhi pu'uone, the person that draws the blueprint in the sand. That's the updated meaning 2.0. If you look at the picture, this is my mom. I like to reference her as a Renaissance tita. I reference her as that because she grew up deeply steeped in our cultural practices of hula. And when I say hula, it's not just like the motions and the choreography of hula, whatever you see at Waikiki. It's cool. But it's also the associated arts around hula, the creation of the regalia or the a'ahu, the gathering of these specific native plants that are out there. And each of these native plants also have roles in our larger water functions and within our forests. And so this overall understanding of both our forests, the water systems, as well as understanding how to interact with them to create these different costumes, that's also all alongside this practice of hula iha'a. So she was steeped in that, and she understood that. So then when it became the Renaissance time, the Hawaiian Renaissance time in the 70s, she was like, I already know all of that stuff. So she took the time in the 70s to be interested in fashion, to be interested in architecture, to be interested in sculpture and painting. And to me, I feel like it's her unique combination of interests that actually fed into what Six Zane Designs is today. Okay, in the next picture, you can see it, but in the middle over there, there's a skinny Pake guy, skinny Chinese guy. He's from Kaneohe. Yeah, if you guys didn't know, Six Zane is from Kaneohe. He's not from Hilo, but he moved to Big Island. I want to say in like the late 70s, and I think at that time, what he was trying to do is he was actually trying to sell real estate. So my gungung, my Chinese grandpa, he sold insurance, and then my dad sold real estate, and I was like, One pocket is selling insurance, when the other one's selling you the property. I don't know. It sounds like a scheme to me. But that said, he moved to the Big Island to be able to find these large swatches of property. At the same time, he was very interested in the Hawaiian culture, and so he ended up going to the college and going to Hawaiian studies. And just so happened that while he was doing Hawaiian studies, he ran into Edith Kekuhikuhipu and Honolulu, Yokohala, because she was a teacher there. And she kind of just took him under her wing and just turned his perspective around to be very interested in these cultural practices that have been embedded in place for generations. And so that little bit of insight that he gathered started him on this trajectory of cultural knowledge. That said, he started dancing in the halau. And while he's dancing, he's a pretty good dancer, but, he wasn't front row at the time when he first started. He was maybe like 3 rows back or something like that. Anyway, while he was dancing in the beginning, my mom would just walk in with her dog, like the people walking in with their dog over here. Just walk in with her dog through the lines and just walk up to the front, talk to her mom for a little bit, talk to my grandma Edith, and then walk back. And then my dad was like, "Whoa, who's this tita just rolling up?" And then, obviously he had to figure out how to, for lack of better terms, how to woo my mom or court my mom. This very awkward conversation. But as he was living on Hawaii Island, he was surfing, hiking, fishing, and just enjoying all of these gems that we still have on Hawaii Island. And unfortunately, he wasn't doing any real estate transactions, and he was running out of funding very quickly. So when it came down to trying to court my mom, he didn't really have that much opportunities to figure out what to do. So when he went to Roosevelt, yes, he graduated from Roosevelt. I don't know if anybody went to Roosevelt over here. Yeah, I brought it in the back. So when he went to Roosevelt, one of his friends taught him this process of ruby lith, and it's this hand-cut ruby lith, which is a clear film and a red film on top of each other, and you go with an X-Acto, and you hand-cut into it, and then you peel away, and what you're left with is the artwork. And so he was taught this process, and then you take that and you put it onto your screen, do the emulsion process, and then you can screen print. It's kind of an archaic process, but all of the artwork, 99% of the artwork that you see at any of our shops or on our website or even on this lovely pants right here, even though it's a nakeu, it's still my dad's artwork. Nakeu paid $300 for that artwork, by the way. So no matter what artwork you see, it's all hand-cut artwork. So he started screen printing pareos, and he would gift it to my mom. And then my mom would be wearing the pareo, and she'd walk into the halau, and then, she'd be like teaching hula and stuff. And then some of the aunties would come up to my mom, be like, "Nalani, where you got that pareo from?" And she's like, "Oh, the pocket in the 3rd row." But lo and behold, a lot of the people in the halau loved the design, and so everybody just kind of attached on and supported my dad and purchasing the pareos. But they eventually did get together at some point. And so Sig Zane Designs literally originated as a gift of love between my dad and my mom. Oh! Okay, so fast forward to today. This is the Aloha shirt. Of course, I have a Aloha shirt. I see a bunch of people with the Aloha shirts on. The Aloha shirt hasn't changed. The style, the cut, the artwork, the colors, a lot of it hasn't changed over the past. Actually, we turn 40 next year, so over the past 40 years, it hasn't changed at all. But one of the most important parts of it is the narrative behind the Aloha shirts, and that's what we hope to share today. So, when it comes to Native, back to Native, I know that was a big commercial, but back to Native, when it comes to Native, what are some of the first things that pop in your mind when you think of the term Native? I'm not gonna lie, I grew up over here, so the first thing that pops into my mind is, no, Native. And I was like, oh, Brother Nolan. That's one of the first things that popped into my mind. And then after that, the next one was Old English font. Just a big fat Kanaka Ole on my back like that, and in Old English. I was like, yep, that's Native, 100%. And then, of course, I have to give it to my dad too. I also thought about native plants and different forests. And thank you to my lovely other half. She was like, don't forget about the plants, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, plants, okay. So definitely plants was one of them that came to mind. And then I also thought about all of the different newspapers, all the newspaper that literally treasured and kept our Olelo Hawaii going, as well as all of our ancestral texts going over the years. And then also too, I thought of my grandpa. Weirdly enough, I look at this, he looks like a football player in here, in this picture, but to me, he's Kanakaʻale, he's 100% pure blood Hawaiian, but he's from Ka'u, silent, barely says any words at all whatsoever. And so I used to sit across from him during breakfast when I was a little kid, and just like try to talk story with him, and he goes like, and then he'd end off the whole breakfast with 3 words: "You go Hollywood." I was like, wow, is that a compliment or I don't know. I think that's a diss. And then lastly, one of the things that I think about too, and weirdly, because, kind of grew up in this modern era, I think about native OS, like native operating systems. And so I don't know, I'm not a coder or anything like that, but that always pops in my head, like native applications or like software, hardware. And so that's also something that pops up into my head when I think of native. And so I wanted to kind of review something with you guys. It's on your screen. But when you think about native operating system, there's 3 levels within that, and that's users, of course, and then there's the software, and then there's the hardware. And in my mind, looking at this, I was working with this guy, Kamuela Enos, intelligent, brilliant guy, right? And so in my time working with him, we came across this idea that, you know what, if you looked at the cultural practice and you removed all of the oogly-googly portions of it, the chanting and all that, don't get me wrong, chanting is very powerful, but if you removed all of that out and you use this as a context, then you can look at users as yourself. And no matter if that's the generation that came before you or the generation that moved here a few generations ago, or if it's your kids and the following generation. So you can look at users. How I like to look at the culture is a software to the land. And so the cultural protocol, the awa ceremonies, the hula e ha'a, the loko i'a, all of these different cultural practices is the software to the hardware. And so if you look onto the screen, I just included a few things here. The ho'okupu, the awa ceremony, understanding protocol, our hula kuahu, as well as the loko i'a. All of these different protocols are actually just the software to be able to survive on the hardware. Now, you're removing all of the I don't speak Hawaiian and all that kind of stuff. This kind of gives you a general context and understanding that, no, this culture has been here for thousands of years, and all it is a contextual way to survive on an island. For the software, for the users to use the software to survive on the hardware. Okay, we'll come back to this. I know that was a lot. Okay, so in the beginning of my career, this is probably the first thing that stood out is the idea that native to me is a facade. I know facade has a bad connotation at some points, but I know there's a lot of creatives here, and I'm sure that you get asked to just put some Hawaiian on it. I've heard that multiple times in my career, and so when I first started off, that's kind of like the first thing that popped up into my head. And when I was going to high school, one of the first catalysts of this thought was this t-shirt. It's this t-shirt. I don't know if you guys remember the t-shirt, but it's a Quicksilver t-shirt. I'm kind of aging myself too. But I was in high school at the time, and it just said the H and the I with a little Quicksilver logo on top there. I remember that. It was the first time in my mind that the surfing industry recognized Hawaii, in my mind. And I was like, wow, this is powerful. This is so cool. I need to buy this shirt. I bought the black one. I think I still have it. But at the same time, it prompted a question in my mind. Who designed this shirt? Is this person from Hawaii? Or is this person from California? I don't know. I actually still don't know the answer to this question. Maybe somebody over here knows the answer. But that one simple question that got prompted in my mind from this t-shirt kind of set me on this trajectory. And it also made me peer behind the facade a little bit. And this t-shirt was a version of that facade. Because if they're going to be using Hawaii as an entity to put onto this shirt, then when you peer behind the t-shirt and you look at the corporation, how Hawaiian is the corporation? And that was kind of like the initial thoughts that was going on in my head. The next step of that was this one over here. This is kind of a overall project that people have seen, but it's the Ohana by Hawaiian livery design that we did. This is back in the day. I don't even know what year it was, 2012 or something. But you can go online, you can find the story about this. I don't want to talk about the story of this. I want to talk about the background portion because these are all creatives in the industry. So this is one of the first times I walked into MV. I'm not going to say what agency. One of the first times I walked into an agency office, and coming from Hilo, I was like, oh, this is big city to me. So I walk into the agency office, and on the desk in the agency, they just had Pele Awards, like looking like a bunch of like spikes all over the coffee table. And I had my coffee, and I was like, I don't know where to put my coffee down. Wow, this is impressive. I didn't even know what a Pele Award was at the time, but I was just impressed with their spiked coffee table. Anyway, we walk into there, and Hawaiian Airlines is introducing us to the advertising agency, and they're like, okay, this is Kuhao, and then also this is Sig. I don't know if you guys know Sig. And no joke, first word out of Uncle's mouth over there was, oh, of course we know Sig. We rip Sig off all the time. And it was kind of like, ha 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 ha. I was like, wait, I'm not laughing. Did this guy just say that? And he laughed it off. Don't get me wrong. Like, it wasn't a bad thing. It was kind of a joke to show respect to a certain degree. I understand. But that's also another moment that I just peered behind the facade a little bit. And I was like, okay, wait. I was intimidated to come into this room. But when this guy just stated that, I was like, never mind. Okay, let's do this. Let's play this game. So that project was specifically the Ohana by Hawaiian project, and that ended up being the design that we put onto there. But this little process also made me believe that native is a facade back then. Okay, and then the last one, I know Jasper was at the dinner last night, and then of course shout out to Kameo, but I got to paint a wall at Lana Lane over there, and that was actually a super fun project. I appreciated the time, and then also especially because I don't paint at all. I'm such a terrible painter. I got kicked off my own mural. Exactly. Yeah, it was so bad. They're like, you know what? Just take the picture of him and get him off of here. He's ruining it. And so I had a lot of help over there, and some of them were painting walls. If you look at your screen, some of them were painting each other. But that said, I had a lot of help, and overall, this project was really fun to me because it offered me an opportunity not only to talk about salt or pa'akai, but it also offered me an opportunity to get back to this one guy in a conference call, which I'm not going to say any names, of course. But there's this one hotel in Waikiki. There's one hotel in Waikiki on that far side of Waikiki. And they wanted us to be able to do a lobby installation. And they had a short time because, of course, architects were done, blueprints were done, building was done. And then when they went back to go talk to, QT, let's just say QT. When they went back to go and talk to QT, and QT told them, oh, there's no cultural components in here, Queen Liliuokalani Trust, there's no cultural components in here, then they're like, oh, okay, yeah, you gotta go. Let's go call Sig Zane. And then so we jumped into the meeting, and it was a very limited amount of time, and one of the main things was that they ordered some materials for this project. And my dad was like, that's great that you guys ordered these materials, but also too, I think we need some representation of some native materials. So if there's any opportunity to order some native wood, maybe like koa, lehua, ohi, and then the guy's like, wait, no. We already ordered the wood. It's on its way from Argentina up to LA, and then it's coming down to Honolulu. This is a non-conversation. Wow. I think that's the first time I heard that term, non-conversation. Wow, okay. And then I was like, oh, okay. Well, maybe there's other ways that we can work on it, and we'll figure something out. And we hung up, and then I was talking to my dad, and my dad just had this face. He was like this, And I realized, I was like, oh, wow. We literally just got shut down for our belief systems in that conversation. Understanding that they had to invest in that wood. Totally understandable. But at the same time, me and my dad just decided at the moment we do not want to work with these kind of people that are completely shut out to the concepts that we're bringing to the table. And so we didn't pursue that. And literally what they said was, later on in the conversation, can you guys just make sure that it has the designs that you guys do, like on your aloha shirt, but just wrap it onto the wall? I was like, wow, this guy just wants me to sprinkle some Hawaiian on it. Are you serious? So anyway, this mural was actually a shout out to that guy. I appreciate that guy. And when we were done with the mural, I made these little salt shakers. I put pa'akai in them too, and I made like 20 of them or something like that. But it just had little Hawaiian on there. And there was there's a little verbiage on there that a lot of what is Hawaiian is not only an aesthetic, but it's also embedded in the language, and the language is embedded in the aina. And so all of these things are interconnected with each other. And so you can't just simply sprinkle some Hawaiian on it. So shout out to that guy. The next step was Native is a narrative. And the narrative portion is actually one of my most funnest portions of my career. There's a bunch of different projects, but some of them are aloha shirts, some of them are signage. But this aloha shirt that you see right here is Uluwehi Keokaha, one of the most successful prints that we've had over the years. And if you guys don't know the story behind this print, that the ulu tree was gifted to me on my first birthday. There's a picture, but the ulu tree was gifted to me on my first birthday, and it's a Hawaiian practice to be able to gift not only an ulu tree, but any tree that can feed the child for the rest of its life on their first birthday, on the Piha Makahiki. And so this ulu tree was given to me, and it was something that I planted. I think I planted it when I was 7 or something, but I ended up taking care of it over the years, and I still take care of it to this day. That's a picture of it. That's my son standing underneath it. He's running around somewhere over there. Anyway, this ulu tree meant a lot to me, and also my dad wanted to create some artwork based off of this ulu tree, and so that aloha shirt that you saw on the previous slide is actually artwork that derives directly from that tree, and it's made it into so many different projects or so many different iterations over the years. But that narrative of being able to feed the next generation as a cultural practice was an important part. Okay. So I'm in the shop, I got my full pake hat on, and a guy comes in and he's wearing that shirt. He's wearing the Uluwehi Keokaha shirt. So I walked up to him and I was like, hey, how's it going? Aloha, welcome. Thank you for coming in. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. My name is Kuhao. And he was like, oh, yeah. And I was like, by the way, that's a beautiful shirt that you have on. And he's like, oh, thank you. I just got it recently. And I was like, maybe he doesn't know the story. Do you know the story behind this shirt? And he was like, actually, I do know the story behind that shirt. It's Sig and his son, and then they planted his piko underneath the tree, and it's because they want the tree to be able to feed his son. I was like, oh, this guy memorized the story. It's crazy. So anyway, what epiphany happened to me at the moment, he wasn't from here, by the way. He's from the mainland. But the epiphany that happened at the moment is like, if you can present our aesthetic and you can present our narrative in the right way, that it'll build a regard and respect, and people will even adopt these cultural practices. And that's where the transition from native is a facade transitioned over into native is a narrative. There's a bunch of projects over the years, and I don't want to take up too much time, so I'll kind of click through these. But one of the other projects is, if you look at the map on there, there's these little orange diamonds, but each of these locations are different Kilauea points. You know, Kilauea volcano on Hawaii Island, of course, but there's a Kilauea almost on every island. And there's this story about Hi'iaka. When she got up to Kauai, she needed some help, Pele and Hi'iaka. When she was up in Kauai, she needed some help, and so she called her uncles, and she was like, Uncle, I cannot get this guy Lohiao to get back to life. I need to figure out how to get him back to life. Can you guys help me? And then her uncle, which is Kauila Nui Makehai Kalani, he's the god of lightning, was like, Tira, hold on, I got you. And he sent electricity through each Kilauea, from Kilauea volcano all the way to Kilauea Maui, Kilauea on Oahu, all the way to the Kilauea in Kauai. And then she grasped the electricity and then pumped it into Lohiao, literally and pumped it into Lohiao, and he came back to life. And during that whole time, what happened was that this practice of understanding that electricity can bring back to life, we understood that as that is the work of Hawaiian Electric. And no matter what Hawaiian Electric is going through currently, that's still the role of each of the individuals that work at Hawaiian Electric. And so these different kilo whale points actually connect into the overall logo that you guys see on your bill every day, every month. But that's the story behind this print, and that's where also the narrative not only attached itself to just the aesthetic, but we got to share that narrative with each one of the employees. Over the years, there's been a bunch of projects, and even some of my favorite ones was with the Oregon Ducks, and that was a crazy opportunity that literally all they were trying to do is the term Taulau'u, and that's Marcus Mariota's middle name. And they wanted to figure out how to celebrate the Polynesians that have brought their talent to the Oregon Ducks, as well as figure out a way to be able to attract new talent from Polynesia to the Oregon Ducks. And so we translated the term Taulau'u, which is actually the people that are responsible for coconuts and all of the different iterations and materials that can come from a coconut tree. We translated that into this overall Oregon Ducks design. And this one definitely was a fun one too, because not only were we able to translate the design, but we were able to do a workshop with each of the players and be able to share the narrative out with each of the players. Okay, so now we're at the ending kind of section. I know it's supposed to end at 9:30. I'm gonna push through this. We're gonna go. Noah's putting up the timer, but that said, I'm gonna try and push through this a little bit quicker. So please stick with me. Native is a blueprint. This part is a part, if there's any part that I wanted you to pay attention to, this would be the part. Okay, so you see all these Hawaiians inside this picture. This is crazy. This was back in 2009, and my mom's sister, Auntie Pua, she gathered all of these Hawaiians together. These are the cultural practitioners. When you talk about national heritage, this is the Hawaiian national heritage sitting on this stairwell right here. Different lauhala practitioners, different lokoi'a practitioners, kauhale practitioners, hula practitioners. And so each of these elders from every corner of Hawaii all came over, and just so that Auntie Pua could share one big concept that she came across. And the concept was makavalu. So makavalu is an old term, but brought to light by Auntie Pua. And so it's the idea of maka, eyes, and then valu, or 8, being able to view the Hawaiian language or view anything from 8 different levels or 8 different layers. And so understanding that the Hawaiian language is very simple, it might be one word, but there are 8 different understandings of that. So when you look at a chant and you look at the whole long chant line with like 8 different words in there, there's also 8 different layers multiplied into that. And then Auntie Pua was looking at the Kumulipo, which is our cosmogonic origin chant, and it's like 2,000 lines. 1792, 1793, 1794, those 3 lines are the most important. And it's weird that like all of the 2,000 lines have full sentences, but these 3 lines, only this word in every line. Trippy. Papahulilani, Papahuli Honua, and Papahanau Moku. After she was staring at this for literally like decades, she realized, oh, Papahulilani, all of the cycles of the heavens. Papahuli Honua, all of the cycles of earth. Papahanau Moku, all of the cycles of beings that give birth. She realized that these 3 lines are a dissection point of our natural environment, and this is what Hawaiians understood. Why this was so important is because now we could look at all of these myths and chants about Pele and Kauilanui Makahaikalani, and now we don't look at them as godly mythology. Now we look at them as in-depth environmental data. So now when you look at our ancestral text, we actually have all of this in-depth environmental data available to us, and it depends on everybody's perspective. No matter what your career is, a planner, an architect, a designer, whatever your career is, you bring your lens to the table, and that might actually help translate some of the data to see how you can apply it today. So the very important part, which is the makavalu. And there's a few designs that have embedded this. Vaiko Olihilihi, which is the one that you see here. And Vaiko Olihilihi is literally just the water dew in the lehua. And of course, There's an aloha shirt that comes along with that, available at Sig Smith right now in half it. No, I'm just playing. But the big part that was for me is that I took this process that Antipool created and I evolved it into a design methodology. And so there's only a few steps over here. You know, I guess you can screenshot it. Please don't. But there's these different steps, and this is a design methodology that I've adapted to my design process. And what it could look like is something like this. If you guys look at your screen, okay, I'm going to change it. So, in general, the cultural foundation that I had basically gave me a process and gave me a way to develop a design methodology that is ingrained in Hawaii or Ike Hawaii. There's been a lot of projects over the years, and some of them have been fun. The one that you currently see is the one with the fishing lure on there. That's probably my favorite one because we could spend R&D budget on it. And then lastly, the blueprint. When I say blueprint, native is a blueprint. That's when we start to ask the question is, how can Hawaiian values or Hawaiian environmental data actually dictate how a blueprint is set on the aina? And so just different things to think about. And then lastly, native is systemic. And I think that that's where I'm currently at with my career, is trying to figure out how can we create a systemic change. And I actually have to mahalo my beautiful other half, Shea, over there. Oh, she's malama keiki over there. Yes, round of applause for Shea over there. When we first started dating, she told me, she was like, why don't you do something more than sell aloha shirts? Like, it's just like selling aloha shirts. Like, why don't you just figure out how to do like systemic change? I told her I was going to bring this up, by the way. But I actually have to appreciate being called out like that, because this trajectory that you see of the definition of native is actually a part of my own thesis that I'm building in my head of how native can be a systemic change. And so one of the first ways is this life sciences project that we did. I mean, this UH Manoa project that we did. There's a video to it. You can screenshot this QR code and watch the video to it. I don't want to spend time talking about it. But one of the important parts that came from this UH project is that I got to connect to really smart people over at UH. And there's some other names over here, but one of the projects that came from that signage project is this one. And the cool thing is that these are all soil scientists. I don't even know how I made it into the room. I think I just got asked to like put some Hawaiian on it or something. Anyway, I'm sitting down listening to these people, and they're like super smart, but I get to go out into the field with them and feel the different soils that they test and be able to look at their spectral analysis of the soil, look at the different carbon, look at the different machines that they have, the elements that the soil has. And overall, whenever you look at soil, these are the 2 points that you have. You have carbon and aging, and then you also have your soil types and elements. And we have some of the most beautiful soil here, especially on Hawaii Island and Hamakua. But the cool part that UH has is they have an algorithm that's specific IP just to UH. And this algorithm actually can build out not only the soil types and elements and the carbon aging, but it can also give you a score of how healthy and what the capacity of life is in the soil. To me, that was mind-blowing. And then the craziest part is these guys went to a Makavalu workshop, and they were interested to see how can historical ancestral data, how can stories of place, and how can Hawaiian nomenclatures fill in some of the missing gaps of observation over the years. And so they were interested to bring the cultural component alongside the Western science component and bring them together into one. And so that project actually turned into a soil sampling. And so we have a few soil samplings happening across the islands right now in Hamakua currently right now. And hopefully we want to get it to a point where we can sample everywhere, so that if there's one chant over here that is talking about this legendary koa tree that has helped the whole forest be able to rejuvenate itself over the generations, that we can sample that soil and see how we can take that same data and apply it to other places that may have been overdeveloped. So with each of these different elements together, putting them together, of course, we want to create a soil lab, and it's actually started. It's called Makali'i Metrics, and weirdly enough, I was brought in just to do a logo, but it was also the cultural context, or the native cultural context that was given to me, that offered me the opportunity to actually have some equity in this project, as well as bring the cultural perspective into the project. So, lastly, I just want to just finish off with, Native is home, and there are a lot of elements and players and individuals that all contribute to the same place, and we're all a part of the same kaiāulu, which we have to understand that we have to be able to work with each other. But I bring back this diagram of the users, the software, and the hardware. Because for me, no matter what you choose, how to interface with this aina, no matter if it's ho'opa'i ka olelo Hawaii, a me ka malamaha loa I ka lo'i, a me ka ha'a ana I ka ai ha'a me hula kahiko. No laila, whatever you choose, e ho'oma'a mākou a me na opio I pa'i ka aina, so that this place that we call Hawaii will forever be our home. Mahalo.
Question.
Good morning, magandang umaga. My name is Ara. Kuhao, I told you I was going to ask a question this morning, last night. It's going to be a heavy one, I'm so sorry, so just prepare. It's a heavy one. It's really important. HTA asks you, and city and county asks you, we understand that we are losing the retention of our local people and our community. What do our policymakers and leaders need to do to retain innovation, leadership, mentorship for our young people? I told you, it's heavy.
Damn it.
I know.
Oh, mahalo, Ara.
A lot of people are like moving away,
Yeah.
and like we look around, I'm not from here, I'm from the Philippines, but it's obvious when folks can't afford to purchase homes and...
She did not prep me for that question. It was a brand new question. Anyway, I skipped over one part of the presentation because Noel was like 5 minutes. But I did want to. So the UH project, it was super fun, and that signage project actually incorporated some of the Heiau wayfinding items that I explained earlier, and it was an amazing learning experience to work with the architectural students on that. That said, since we work so well together, they have another building that's popping up at UH that's going to be for students and for faculty. And they called me and they're like, "Oh, do you want to be a part of this project too?" I was like, "Oh yeah, sounds fun to me." And then so they're like, "Just jump onto the Zoom with the architects." And I jumped onto the Zoom, and then they had the building, and then they had artwork on the building already. And then they were like, "So what we were thinking with this tribal design," I was like, "Oh, tribal." Okay. What we're thinking with this tribal design, and we're open to any feedback, but what we're thinking with this tribal design, and then the guy from UH cut him off and said, hey, I just want to let you guys know that because of the work that Kuhao and his dad, as well as, Kealopiko, Manuheali'i, fitted, because of the work of these different Hawaiian entities in design did in Hawaii, you can no longer come out with a design unless it has a narrative behind it. And the UH guy told that to the architects. For me, I blew my mind because for a long time, we were on the outside just pounding on the doors trying to figure out how to get in. And this guy just kind of like had an epiphany, gave me an epiphany and said that, no, now sharing a narrative is an industry standard. And no matter if that sharing of narrative is going to become built into policy in some way, at least I can understand that a bunch of the Native Hawaiian designers, the Kanaka designers in here, have a flourishing industry because we've made it an industry standard. So in that same way, when we're working with HTA, we have to look at what makes Hawaii a unique product and then be able to invest in that unique product so that it can't be duplicated anywhere else in the world. And then, on top of that, you can only get that unique product made by keiki o ka aina that have grew up over here. General.
Awesome. Oh, right here we have a question.
Aloha, o wau o Maurice Crab. Ike o makaiki. O ka haumana ma ke kula nui o manoa. As a young Hawaiian in academia, it really hit me when you said when there should be systemic change. So as a young Hawaiian pursuing higher education and really looking for something more innovative and then something more progressive, and yourself as a leading figure in our lahui, how do you see that happening in the coming years?
No, mahalo nui for your manao. It's interesting, and it's also, it's going to be a pretty uphill battle. I was laughing because I was at my parents' house. We have Sunday dinner, and then outside in the garage is my grandma's plaque that she got from UH that they gave her. My grandma Edith. They gave her an honorary PhD she's on the quarter. I don't know if you guys know this, but she's on the quarter. And so when the quarter came out, UH gave my grandma an honorary PhD. And that's awesome. I appreciate it. And at the same time, she passed away. Why are you giving it to her? Like, give it to my mom. Auntie Po already has one. Give it to other brilliant people within our community so that these larger educational structures can actually codify the knowledge, the ancestral knowledge that is already built within the practitioners that we have within our community. And I think until that codifying happens or until that recognition happens, it's still going to be kind of an uphill battle. But that's why creatives and designers are so important, because we have the opportunity to engineer societal understanding of what's going on through our aesthetics. And so if we continue to engineer this societal understanding, then hopefully we can transition into a place where ancestral knowledge as well as curricular knowledge is both in the same house.